Hello, YouTube and BitChute friends. It's been a while. It's been a while. And I thought I'd give an update for the few people that have been interested in my ideas, my thoughts about the meaning of the universe, my universe, and the expanded universe, the mystery that we are a part of, that I'm so grateful to be a part of, even more so in the last 6-7 months, and I'll try to explain why. And it's been quite a fascinating 6-8 months for me, because I was diagnosed clinically with stage 4 prostate cancer. There you go. A clinical diagnosis by the white coats, the people that are caught, the degenerates that are called doctors that I've been exposed to. They're complete barbarous relics. As Greenspan once said about gold, a barbarous relic. Well, these people are becoming obsolete in terms of their ability to heal anything, particularly on the chronic side of things. This is a very complex issue because it involves such complex levels of feeling, emotions, thoughts. Once we end up in a situation that is called an illness, particularly the C, the cancer, as my daughter-in-law refers to cancer people as heroes and victims all at the same time. This is how the medical system treats cancer patients, as heroes and victims. Most of them die that go through their system. Their system is so brutal that if you look at the statistics openly, this is quite well known. They claim to have a 67% success rate with most cancers, but it turns out to be, if you're very lucky, to be 15%. I think it's less. I think it's less than 5%, maybe 3% that survive the system. Once you get into their clutches, you're unlikely to survive. And they make adjustments in terms of the type of cancer, this and that. They call certain ones easier to deal with, other ones harder to deal with. This maybe so as far as they're concerned. So my update, I'm not sure how long I'm going to do this or even if I'm going to upload it, but maybe at some point I will. My clinical diagnosis more or less happened at the end of February, and the urologist that I have, I'm not going to say his name yet. He's Mr. Hyde. He was Dr. Jekyll for a moment and turned into Mr. Hyde when I began to assert my own ideas and thoughts about my body that he completely rejected and felt threatened by. I'm sure he felt threatened by the way I approached the news that he gave me. He was very cryptic. You know how there is like this sensibility about they do it over and over again. They tell people that they're that they have the C and run for the hills. No, don't run for the hills. Run into our bosoms. Run into our white coats. Our white coats will cover you and take care of you. We'll fix it for you. They don't make any promises, but they pretend like they'll fix it for you. So I was clinically diagnosed. I refused a biopsy because after researching the consequences and possible repercussions on biopsies, everybody does it, don't worry about it. Yeah, well, there are risks when they pull a bunch of little pieces of flesh out of your gland and pretend it's fine. We need to figure out what type of cancer it is, and we got to get in there in a hurry. We got to do it, and better do it soon. And I refused, which I think raised his eyebrows, and he pretended to be okay with it because I said, look, I'm keeping my options open, and for the time being, I'm considering an alternative way of dealing with my affliction, with this problem. And he seemed to be relatively at ease with that in the first or even the second meeting. And it turned really sour on the third meeting because he figured he could wear me down and get me to comply and push me into the system. So since I refused, the oncologists also refused to see me. They took his advice and said, this is a prick who doesn't want to follow our advice. He thinks he knows better. Don't treat him. So I was refused treatment. I didn't even have to think about it anymore. I'm not, whether it's their poison called chemo, or their poison called radiation, or their other poison. He recommended chemical castration, a whole other series of radical interventions that seemed antithetical to the nature of my being and the nature of what it is that I am a part of. Anyway, the fact that I didn't need to refuse anymore because they decided not to treat me. So I am a renegade. I'm outside the system. And I broke it, I fix it. That's what I said to him as well. Look, I broke it, I fix it. It's my responsibility. And I'm sort of 8 months into this now. And I'm very optimistic that, and I'll outline some of my protocols, the things that I understand and the things that I'm doing. But I just wanted to get this out of the way, that once you are diagnosed, there is extreme pressure to comply if you are engaging with the medical system, the pharmaceutical medical tyrannies, these bullies. They're going to put a great deal of pressure through coercion, ill manners, abuse, levels of degeneracy that I did not believe was possible, immoral, unethical behavior. I will go into more detail, and I have to sort of think about this. I'm going to name his name eventually. He's a urologist in Sarnia. And but for the time being, I'm not going to get into a fight because it's too important to heal. When you're healing, I think one of the most important things is not to be involved in acrimonious, angry situations, which is actually something the environment that these white coats want to create, a level of anxiety that keep our mind in a state of unease. And healing is not possible when we are in a state of unease. So it's very important, if whatever illness or affliction a person may go through, that the mental, emotional, spiritual state is in the highest form of balance with the mystery. And I use this word mystery in the sense of it having a great deal of direction for us. Like if, for example, it's like people, they meditate or they do exercises that create a sense of self. Like when that feeling that you are a very important entity within the frame of things, obviously for you, but also within this structure that has placed us here. Whatever this structure that is all around us, that we perceive and even that we don't perceive, that we're unable to perceive. We are integral, important to this structure, and not to be sidetracked by people, by the psychopaths who are out there attempting to derail us. And this is the first 3-4 months was my experience with the people that were trying to derail me. For example, my nurse practitioner, I don't even have a doctor. I can't get a doctor anymore. They don't, they're so busy. The system is broken. It's like falling apart. You can't get a doctor. So I've got this nurse practitioner, sweet girl, clueless, gives me a call one day after I returned from the urologist, and he obviously told her or made a note on my file that I'm a prick and a bastard for not doing what I'm doing. And she said, Tom, well, you're not doing, this is very dangerous. You have to do something. And I stopped her and I said, what makes you think I'm not doing something about my situation? What is it? Why are you assuming just because I've refused certain treatments that were offered, why do you think I'm not doing anything? And this is the assumption, obviously, unless you're doing what they're saying, their assumption is they're so integrated in the system. Rather than asking Tom, what are you doing? Or a person say, all right, you have decided, my body, my choice, or whatever that informed consent part that they always pledge allegiance to informed consent, and then they bully you into a shit show COVID injection that hasn't been tested. It's an experimental drug that everybody had to take because your body, your choice. Oh, but in this case, no. And then if you refuse their treatments, it's the same idea. Hey, you refused, you bastard. We're gonna hammer you until you submit. Anyway, even the most benign, pleasant individuals in the system exercise this this kind of bullying and total disinterest. And neither of them, those two anyway, totally disinterested in what it is that I might be doing. And I'll get to what I'm doing. I'm just getting this for the first video I'm doing after months and months. I'm getting this out of the way. And I'm right in the middle of this, right? I'm in the very middle of this. My situation, I feel good, generally speaking, with the exception that, of course, when you have a prostate issue, there's what is called a BPH, which is an enlarged prostate, either because of tumor or because of other activity. Very likely in older guys that are apparently over 45 and 50. There is increased testosterone activity that is blowing up or testosterone contributes or estrogen contribute to the increase in the size. I believe this is part of the idea that this BPH, this enlarged prostate, and as guys get older, is an issue. And the peeing thing, I think quite a number. By the time you're 70, maybe 7 out of 10 men are affected. So this is not an uncommon problem, and it could be, in my case, like I say, I've had the MRI, and the MRI suggests that it's the C, the big cancer, has grabbed a hold of me and is going to destroy me. This is through the diagnostic, and I am interested in the diagnostic part, which is another issue. My last meeting, which will be the last one with this urologist, I asked him to request an MRI to see how I'm proceeding. He didn't even give a shit what I was doing in order to request. He said, no, you can't have an MRI. It's been too early. It won't show anything. And I said, I beg to differ. I've been doing different things that I believe have changed. My condition has changed, and I'd like to see what it looks like. No, you can't have it. So I didn't lose my cool. He almost walked out on me. He basically threatened me with, it's kind of like I'm sitting there as the patient and it's all about him. I had to literally sort of grab his attention and say, look, it's not about you and your protocols and your dogma. It's about my health. So are you going to help me or not? So he realized that this was totally unethical, his behavior. He sat down, stared me down like he had these Svengali eyes staring me down, making me feel, or attempting to make me feel really little. And he didn't say anything anymore after he said, no, he wasn't going to help me. So I just said, hey, I need to tell you what I'm feeling and thinking, and you're making me extremely uncomfortable. I'm not liking where this is going. It's not about my healing anymore. I don't know what it's about, what you're doing here. So he sat down, and his Svengali looked me in the eyes and listened to me. And basically all I said is, I've been working on my healing, and I would like to know whether there is progress. And if you can help me with that through the what are called MRIs, I'd be very interested for you to recommend and request an MRI. And he looked at me and he said, well, you can pay for it. And I said, how much? And he said, $3,000. I thought that was reasonable. And I said, well, I don't have that kind of money lying around because, the other argument I had with him, I said, look, I'm not costing a nickel to the system other than meeting you and whatever you charge the system. Once you're in there and they're doing their biopsies and their chemical treatments and their radiations, you're looking at the tens of thousands of dollars. I said, I'm not costing you anything. All I'm saying is just request this MRI. I'd like to see, have an update on what it looks like down there, in there. So finally he capitulated. Oh, he had such resentment in this. He said, oh, I'll give you your MRI. I will give you your MRI. Like he is the guy in charge. I mean, he's on the government payroll, our payroll, and he's telling me, I will give you your MRI, right? The arrogance, the absolute arrogance in these people. There's no compassion. There's no depth of insight into the circumstances they're in. Degenerates. Oh, another little aspect of this. He had my files. Obviously, the doctors have all the files, whatever they're looking at, on the computer. Everything is there. So I've been in the treatment of 3 different naturopaths that I've consulted, and I've had blood work done. And for those who understand prostate issues, they usually trigger investigations when what are called PSA tests. PSI? Yeah, PSA. Prostate-specific antigen tests. And my original PSA test was 72, which is quite high. The range is 0 to 4. I think this is the PSA. And the PSA is not definite. It's not a definitive diagnosis for cancer. It could be many different things, but quite often it is. So anyway, yes, I had the high PSA. And in my last blood work, the PSA was down to 28. So this is after 6 months of alternative treatments, protocols that I'll get into in a minute. And he looked very disappointed about my PSA being 28, from 72 down to 28. He was very disappointed. He said, oh, it's still quite high. And I said, well, but it's going in the right direction, which is why I think an MRI might be helpful to see if what I'm doing is the right thing. I'm intuitively feeling I'm on top of this. But I don't really know because I'm in the middle of it. So he literally looked disappointed when there was progress towards a healing possibly. And this really irked him as well. And I irritated him to no end because I was calm. I felt quite aggressive at different points and letting him have it. My nature is one to defend myself when I feel done to, the way how the abuse that was coming toward me. But I wanted the end result of getting this anyway. I did get it. But just as a side note, these people are so psychopathic, I think. There's a psychopathy here where they see themselves threatened by any other opinion. This is something that we're aware of just around the world anyway. As soon as there is a differing opinion, they call it conspiracies, and all these different its epithets are thrown at people who might just differ with the consensual view. So just because your view is different from what the system prescribes, what you're taught to do, you're going to be an extreme irritant. And I must say I was quite satisfied with having irritated him to the extent that I did. When I left, he was totally beside himself. I could tell. He was just apoplectic almost. He couldn't hardly talk. And he had actually a student with him, a student doctor from Colombia, whose eyeballs were bulging out as we were interacting. I guess she did not see this happen before, where a patient, or as they like to call us now, clients, would have any kind of issue with the way they're being treated. And I let him know, and I just sort of glanced to the side, but she was kind of silent. By the way, she just walked into the room with him. She wasn't introduced. This other person, all of a sudden, like a non-entity standing there, I had to say, who are you? And she said, oh, I'm a learning doctor from Colombia, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, okay, fine. Didn't even ask me, well, she just came in. Anyway, I had a great sense of satisfaction having irritated him to the extent that I did, considering all the abuse that he leveled against me and has been leveling. Anyway, end of story for now on the urologist. He said, yeah, you're going to get your MRI. Let's see when. Maybe it's in 5 months or 6 months. I don't know. All right. So here it is, people. my circumstance over the last 8 months, the first 4 months were very roller coaster. It was a real roller coaster. It was a shock. It was a shock. And, you know, anybody that is told you've got the C is going to be a hell of a shock. So you either run for into the bosom of the white coats, and, you know, I guess maybe some people feel comfortable with that. I immediately, even though I had runaway terror going on in my brain, I instinctively knew I was not going to let them touch me, because if I did, my ship would sink. This was an intuitive thing, but I wasn't convinced about this. So the doubts back and forth, and the good part for me was that Maria, my partner in life and soulmate, had gone through her own cancer about 40 some years ago when I first met her, within the first 5 years of meeting. And she healed herself through a protocol that was based on Bernard Jensen's tissue cleansing, which involves obviously a very restrictive diet, juicing, fasting, and most importantly, colonics, where you clean your intestines over a period of time. I've been doing colonics for 8 months now, and making sure that the toxicities that build up in our body, which is basically what I believe to be, I would say generally speaking, toxicities are the root cause of all illness and disease. So the priority would be to detox in a manner that addresses the most important organ in the body to be detoxed. Forget liver, kidney, everything. It's the bowel. The bowel is the mystery that we're a part of. The omnipotent being has given us an excretion device called the bowel that takes all the toxic elements from all organs and glands, wherever the blood goes through. It's phenomenally, like, a lot of blood goes through it circulates and deposits stuff in the intestines, and this stuff has to be gotten rid of. And if you don't, there's a lot of people who are proponents of cancer cures, but they never talk about the most important part, which is cleansing yourself of all the toxic material in the body. And over decades and decades, 60, 70 years, I guarantee everybody has accumulated enormous amounts of toxicities in the colon, and it kind of settles in. And I had an earlier warning about 4 years ago where I had an abscess on my colon, which should have suggested, even though I have a vegetarian diet, it should have suggested there are issues and problems. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had an abscess. And they drained it, and I was okay. And it was a warning shot across my bowel, and I didn't take it seriously enough. And then, obviously, the consequences of not having taken it seriously enough, my entire lifestyle, and what is very important is the level of anxiety, the worldview, the positivity, the negativity, all contribute to the toxicities that we need to cleanse from our system. This could be a little bit longer, this dissertation, to fill you in, because it's been a while. So Maria had tackled this issue. It took her, she doesn't really remember exactly. Now, I was out to lunch at the time as well, because she was not very vocal with any of this. She just did it very, almost silently. She just, phenomenal. She was just determined not to be struck down by anything. Her life was ahead of her. We were starting out, and there was this incredible sense of meaning and purpose in her life that I think pushed her into making all the right decisions and finding this Jensen character, this Bernard Jensen, who laid out a system of cleansing that she ultimately cured herself and has been cancer-free for 45 years. She's 80, and she did it. So here's a person that is giving me input. Now, I'm different. I'm older than she was. So there are some variations in the way I'm approaching my situation, but she basically talked me off the ledge many times, specifically regarding my gout, and committing to the idea of, number one, as she said, the cleansing is number one, and the other aspects of my protocols are add-ons. I beg to differ somewhat, because I think there are some of these protocols I'm going to get into now that are not add-ons, but they're actually, for me, in my present understanding, the way I'm approaching this challenge is that they're just as important as the cleansing, but the cleansing, I guess I would still put at the front of the list, okay? So the idea of doing the colonics every day, and Bernard Jensen quibbed in his tissue cleansing book, and I'll attach links to his protocols, the book, what is it, Tissue Cleansing Through Bowel Management, a very Bernard Jensen. You can, it's still available on Amazon. And let me have a swig of water. Okay, so the first 4 months were roller coaster, because it was like a very, what am I going to do? I've basically rejected the white coats who are pissed off with me, so I have no recourse to draw on their whatever expertise they might have had. They're out of the picture. So I basically, I didn't have to make the choice. They did it for me. So basically, I'll give you the synopsis of the protocol that I follow. I researched what is understood to be 10-pass ozone therapy, which introduces large amounts of oxygen into the blood, because cancer essentially is a fermenting, as our cells that grow in fermentation, whereas the rest of our metabolism is oxidative. It's like our body, our cells love oxygen. Cancer cells hate oxygen. So, hey, that's a no-brainer then. To introduce huge amounts of oxygen into the system makes a lot of sense. So ozone is a 3O molecule that gets sort of shaken with this machine. It shakes, it draws out your blood, shakes a bunch of ozone into the blood, and then the weak oxygen is released and goes into the system and wreaks havoc on the shit cells, as I call them, because they love fermentation. They hate oxygen. So this was the primary research I did. And frankly, I did 10 sessions so far of the ozone treatments. Not cheap. They were $500 per session. And as an adjunct to this, the other part of it is and this comes through a character that I disparaged at times, although he has insight, which is Cliff High. He's very impressed with himself, and he has phenomenal abilities to do his research. And he had colon cancer, was near death, as he says, and they resurrected him. He was within hours of dying, he said, and they operated on him and removed a big tumor. He had this tumor for years, maybe even decades, he thinks. And he continuously started to block more and more until he lost weight and couldn't handle things anymore. And they rushed him in hospital and saved his ass. And then he returned home totally weakened. He had lost 50 or 60 pounds from 190 or 200 pounds down to 128 pounds, something like that. And he rehabilitated himself through what he basically said, optimal vitamin therapy. This was his fundamental approach. Medicinal mushrooms, chaga, reishi, lion's mane, turkey tail. There's another one. These are very crucial. Those medicinal mushrooms on a daily basis in your drink. I stopped having coffee for like 6 months, but I've decided I'm going to have some coffee again. And I've got the, what I got in here? I think it's turkey. It's turkey tail in this one, or chaga. I forget. Anyway, it's some of the chaga is a harsh mushroom, and the coffee seems to mitigate it, so I can drink it. So this was his conclusion. Optimal vitamins based on the orthomolecular medicine, an institute founded by a guy called Abram Hoffer and Linus Pauling. And Linus Pauling was the guy who said, douse yourself with huge amounts of vitamin C. He would take up to 20 grams, 20,000 units a day of vitamin C. And there's, of course, the regular vitamin C pills are very low absorption. Maybe if you're lucky to get 20% of that. So if he did 20,000, you might have 20,000 units, he might have gotten 2,000 units, which is 2 grams, which is peanuts. It's nothing. The liposomal improves that substantially. I think liposomal absorption could be up to 80%. Cliff High endorsed this idea, and Cliff High, by the way, appears to be cancer-free. So this is a very good sign for me that when a person goes through an experience, not a white coat or somebody with academic understanding of something, I'm not denying it totally, but when a person actually goes through a thing and then recommends something, I listen to them more than anybody else because they've gone through it. Do you see what I mean? It's like they're giving their firsthand experience. And he got this through Solzhenitsyn's cancer ward. Solzhenitsyn basically cured himself of cancer in the gulags with medicinal mushrooms, which is why the medicinal mushroom is so important in terms of killing the cancer cells. All right, so his protocol made a lot of sense to me. So I've got the ozone. I've also got intravenous high doses of vitamin C. I'm sort of steady at 50,000 units or 50 grams per session twice a week of high doses of vitamin C in the system. And vitamin C is interesting because from what I understand, cancer cells love sugar. So anything to do, first of all, people cut out carbs and sugar completely. This was the other part of the protocol. You cannot feed cancers ferment, and carbs turn into sugars, and cancer cells love that and begin fermenting with the sugars. Now, vitamin C, this is another very important aspect. If you're going through something, this would be my idea of dealing with this, is removing from the diet the things that have gotten us into the situation that we're in. We broke it, we got to fix it. So remove all the sugars and the carbs. The keto diet is part of that. I have been doing keto up to a point, but measuring myself as well. I'll get into that a little bit as well. So the idea of vitamin C in high doses makes sense because vitamin C mimics to the cancer cell to be sugar. Vitamin C is very close to the sugar molecule, but it's anything but sugar. It's got nothing to do with sugar. It looks like sugar to a cancer cell. So the cancer cell gobbles up the vitamin C because it thinks it's sugar. Meanwhile, vitamin C kicks the shit out of the cancer cells. It basically endorses healthy metabolism. All the cells that are good cells in us, and this is again, the mystery has provided us with these safeguards, that we can add this element. Vitamin C, by the way, is not produced by our body. We have to introduce this externally. Other mammals, animals produce, cats, everybody produces vitamin C for themselves, and we need to take it in. We have to have externally add vitamin C every day in order to get, to keep ourselves not getting scurvy. And scurvy is so easily treatable with vitamin C. They figured this out within 5-6 days. People that had scurvy, even with low doses like 2,000 units of vitamin C, scurvy is fixed. So imagine when you're doing 20 grams or 20,000 units, you're giving your system a real boost. And if you're doing injectable like intravenous, you're much higher in terms of absorption because you don't have to go through the gut. And the gut tends to revolt large. I'm okay up to 20, even 25 grams on liposomal. I'm not having any gut reaction. So that's pretty decent. And liposomal has its own advantages, according to one of my naturopaths, who says the liposomal aspect adds another dimension to the healing as well. It's not just vitamin C, but the liposomal part. And I don't really understand that. You'd have to maybe help me out here. I'm not sure what he meant. I have to ask him about that. Okay, so it's the ozone, the vitamin C, optimal vitamins. So vitamin E, tocopherols, and the other one, there's 2 vitamin E's, very important, especially the less accessible one. The second, vitamin E. Vitamin D, high doses. I'm at 12,000 units of vitamin D. There is a certain prerequisite. I think that it's sort of like 40 nanograms per pound, no, 40 nanograms per liter of blood or something in the body. Anyway, my vitamin D protocol is 10,000 units at least, and 200 units of K2. So 200 milligrams of K2, which accentuates or accelerates the absorption of vitamin D. And I take it in drops, usually about 12,000 units. So you got your E, your D. Another important thing based on Abram Hoffer is niacin, very important in the vitamin B12. I've been low on vitamin B12, so B12, I've been getting injections, vitamin B12 injections, in order to raise that. For some reason, I'm having some difficulty with the absorption of B12. This is part of the whole kind of, my suspicion is my fasting, which I've been doing on and off for the last 8 months. I've lost 50 pounds. I went from 210 down to 160. I'm hovering around 165 to 170 every day now. So there has been a substantial loss of weight. I was about maybe 195. I had been up to 210, but that was in my totally degenerate days of debauchery and all the wrong things. I was quite overweight. So, but having just cut out the carbs and the sugars, meaning in the bread mostly, and potatoes and rice and noodles and all that is gone, that has substantially, without fasting even, has reduced my weight substantially. So now the fasting thing started because I went to a clinic in Toronto called Lodi. Excellent people. I like them. I still go there for the ozone treatments, not at the moment. I've stopped to assess where I'm at. But the director there was extremely important for me in the very beginning because he also was confident about the things he was doing in order to help me along in my process. And one of the things he advocated, among other things, was the keto diet. And he was like a bodybuilder type, looked fabulous. I said he should have a monument of himself, a sculpture made of him in front of his clinic, and people will just flock to him just the way he looked. I think he's 50. He looks like fabulous. He's like, looks like, I thought he was in his mid-late 30s. He's actually 50. And I took this, his suggestion. He also recommended fenbendazole, which is kind of like ivermectin, I think. It's a version. It's like veterinarians use fenbendazole to reduce or to get rid of parasites in animals. And there is a curious connection. Fenbendazole is apoptosis, or what it's called. It's a cancer killer in terms of these unwanted cells. It creates an environment that is very unfriendly for anything cancerous in your body. So fenbendazole is another very important supplement that I've been taking for the last maybe 3 months. 3 months, yes. All right, recap. C, D, B12, actually all the Bs, niacin. If you get like a combination of all those B things, I'm taking it in with the drops that have like 6 different Bs in it. There's a lot of Bs. C, D, B. Magnesium, very important. I've doubled the magnesium to, I think I'm doing about 600 milligrams of magnesium, both the bicyclic, whatever, the magnesium, there are 2 versions of it. I take both of them. The magnesium, then zinc citrate, zinc citrate. What else have I got? Okay, and now comes a really interesting element called methylene blue, which is something recommended by a naturopath in Toronto called Dr. Hui. I had a very unpleasant encounter with him to begin with, but the guy, I think, knows his shit about cancer and treatment and stuff, but terrible bedside manner. I have an appointment with him again to sort of go through my blood work, but he recommended what is called methylene blue. I'm taking it. I'm assuming he's had good experience. And Naltrexone, another one of his recommendations. Berberine, people, also very important. What else? Berberine. I know I'm forgetting some. I'm going to put a list underneath so that if I forgot something on my supplements and protocols, and the optimal, as Cliff Hives says, optimal vitamin therapy based on the Orthomolecular Institute's protocols on dealing with cancer. So first of all, then, all those things, the ozone, the vitamin C especially, and then the diet part of it. Now, I understand there are people out there like Chris Walk, his name is, I think Chris Beat Cancer guy, very good. Kill cancer through a plant-based diet. He overdosed on plants and says he healed himself. Now, he never mentions really very much about cleansing and colonics, so I don't understand. He's not talking a lot about fasting, although he does acknowledge it. He does acknowledge the keto diet, which is fundamentally removing all carb-based foods and going toward the fat side of things. So you're dealing with dairy and fish and meat, and I'm not into meat stuff. I did have some fish, sardines, in order to kind of augment that that omega-3 kind of thing. Oh, that's another one I take, omega-3, very important as well. Naltrexone. What is that Japanese thing? Naltrexone? Yeah, it's that blood thinner thing that the Japanese never get heart attacks in because they have this in their diet naturally. Naltrexone, I think it's called. And I have also a DVT behind my leg, like a blood clot that won't dissipate. So this stuff supposedly is going to dissipate. This is what Hui, this other naturopath, recommended. So I've been taking that as well. These things come to my mind. All right, so this idea of the keto diet, I think, is very helpful, very important. And I go back and forth on this, by the way. I will do I've done 7-day fasts, juice fast, 3-day water fast. For a period of 2 months, I would do 3 days water fasting every week and then eat the restrictive diet, the plant-based diet, as Chris Beat Cancer Walk, whatever his name is. Makes a lot of sense to me to reduce your diet to a plant-based diet. That's how I'm approaching it because it makes sense. You don't want to tax your organs, and the fasting part of it, the water fasting part of it, relieves your organs of any kind of stress and lets them heal every week for a little bit. This is also what Bragg, I forget his first name, he's got the apple cider vinegar thing, which I also take. Bragg advocated every week to do 3 days of fasting. And I think if you do even, let's say, 18 hours or 36 hours of fasting, this is fabulous. I think this makes a huge difference to being able to move toward this cancer-starving idea, right? It's like the plant-based diet is, depending on which plants, it's like there are like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, lettuce, like the greens, the chlorophyll stuff, rather than the potato or even the beet. Or I was a little bit heebie-jeebie about beets and carrots because they have a much higher degree of carb and sugar in them, but it's different from carbs and sugar because I am now eating beet, carrot, a little bit of potato, not much, no rice, none of that stuff, because it's a different type of sugar, and fruit as well. I was a bit heebie-jeebie on fruit, but fructose is not the same as glucose. So I think the body has a way of dealing with the good carbs, which we need in order to, for the brain to function, if you starve yourself of the glucose, that the brain becomes somewhat problematic. Although the brain is a fatty tissue, and fat, the keto diet claims that the brain will feed on the fat as well, which is probably true. But this mystery is complex, and I'm thinking, well, the omnipotent being wouldn't have put in front of us fabulous fruit, kiwi and peaches and apples and the berries and everything that contribute to our well-being. Why should they actually hurt us? I understand that, you know, cancer loves the sugar part of it, and it'll probably get a little bit from it, but it's sort of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This was maybe the Chris Walk guy said that. Possibly. Anyway, I don't have an issue with the fruit right now. I'm having great fruit meals, and I do have for my biome the good bacteria. I have kefir. I have kefir and yogurt in my diet as well. Okay, so have I covered the fasting is important, and I feel good with the weight loss. So now what I'm thinking is, obviously I'd like to have a diagnostic to see what the circumstances are from 4 months ago when I had my MRI at the at the beginning of May, June, July, August, September. Okay, five months ago, I had my prostate cancer had supposedly, according to the MRI, metastasized into my bladder, and I am having issues with peeing. But this is like the BPH idea that a swollen prostate will always create issues in terms of peeing. So that has not been alleviated. And this is obviously my main concern, my main focus is on kicking the shit cells out of my body. So for my body to recover, my immune system to be strong enough to deal with these cells. And I don't see why not. I mean, our bodies, the omnipotent being has given us resources, even as we're older, to fight the things that should not be in our system. If we're strong enough, if we're healthy, if we're not eating junk food and all that shit that takes us down the dirty path, and cleansing and all that kind of thing, my worldview, my idea is that this will ultimately force all the shit cells out of our system. So now what I'm hoping, what I'm thinking is that I have this enlarged prostate issue, which may very well be connected to testosterone activities. And Hui, he's this naturopath that I had a hard time with, actually prescribed progesterone cream that would mitigate the activities of estrogen and testosterone in my system, meaning that it would curtail estrogen in conjunction, I think, with, I'm not 100% sure about this, but estrogen is the same as insulin, is a growth hormone. So whenever estrogen gets involved, it likes to tell cells to grow. And cancer cells will be encouraged by estrogen to grow. So you want to somehow mitigate this estrogen aspect, especially males don't think they have estrogen. Yeah, we do. Even I think women have testosterone as well. So it's just different levels. So progesterone is the hormone that tells estrogen to stop making, the body to make estrogen to tell cells to grow. Like women, when they have babies, estrogen is like off the charts because they got to create lots of cells for the fetus, for the baby to grow. And then when at 9 months, the progesterone kicks in and says, okay, time's up, no more cell growth, right? So Hui's idea is, in order to curtail the growth of these cells, you introduce progesterone in your system, and let's see if it works. I've been on it now for about 4 weeks. Can't say that I've had much difference. There is maybe a little bit. I'm actually, I used to have to get up every hour and a little bit at night to pee. I'm down now. Last night, I only got up 3 times instead of 5 times or something. So the sleeping part, okay, I'll get into the sleeping part of it too. All right, so I'm covering a whole bunch of stuff here that might be helpful for people that are looking for protocols, optimal vitamin, ozone. All of that is the ozone, I think, is very helpful, but I can't prove anything. You don't know what works and what doesn't work. High doses of vitamin C, liposomal, rather than the pills and the powder, they don't get absorbed enough. You want to get like 50 grams, even up to 100 grams. I haven't gone that high on my intravenous. My naturopath says, look, let's keep it and at the 50 gram for now. The other naturopath wants to put it up to 100, so I'm going with the 50. Also mistletoe, the European mistletoe, which is also part of this concoction of vitamin C. There is a few other elements, I forget what's in there. I'll attach them down below, what the naturopaths are introducing. Mistletoe apparently is a fabulous cancer killer as well, which is in the intravenous vitamin C injection as well. All right, diet, fasting, optimal vitamin, ozone, progesterone for the enlarged prostate, methylene blue, whatever that stuff does, it makes you Braveheart on the inside because you're going to piss blue. It was like disconcerting because all of a sudden I'm peeing like Braveheart. I didn't need to wear it on my face. I wore it on the inside. The Naltrexone, whatever that is, I don't know. I'm trusting Hui to have had experience on that. And another one, oh yes, melatonin. Hui is a big proponent of melatonin, like 20 milligrams, not like 3 milligrams or 5, 20 milligrams a day. He said he's been on it for 20 years. 20 years he's been taking melatonin, which is this sleep thing. Okay, yeah, the sleep thing. I got to get into the sleep thing for a little bit. Here's the sleep thing. The first 4 months, the roller coaster thing, the greatest difficulty in my healing had to do with the inability to sleep. I literally would not be able to sleep for like 30 hours. I would be awake totally 30 hours. And I got more and more anxious. The more I was unable to sleep, the more anxious I became. And this is like a self-feeding thing. It's a snake eating its own tail. So once you get into this this fear, this doubt, this what the fuck is going on? It's like nothing. And these doctors that instill these brain farts, like this fucking urologist. It's like he just inserted himself in my brain, and at times it's so hard to get rid of. I think I've gotten rid of him. Mr. Hyde in my brain. So they inject themselves, and their objective is to undermine your healing so that they have you in their class. They want you. I'm talking about these real degenerate types, these white coats. I'm sure there's some good ones in there. I'm trying to find them still. I haven't found them. Oh, hold on. Who's this? Dag Ronald. Pause.